I just love imagining like all of the queer stuff that's like gone down these streets. Like in the 1800s, did you know there were circus parades going down Market Street? They had bearded ladies walking down with elephants.
That was Megan Rohrer, whom some of you might remember from season 4 of this show. I'm Jeff, and this is Storied San Francisco, a podcast about artists, activists, and small businesses that make this city so special. This bonus episode is part of our Pride 2025 programming. In it, Megan and I catch up on their life since 2021. They researched, collected stories for, and are publishing a book about the history of San Francisco's Transgender District, where we recorded earlier this month. Here's Megan Rohrer.
Prior to the pandemic, I was doing a lot of like trans and queer activism and homeless work like throughout the United States. Mm-hmm. And to be able to shift to doing it more globally because the US got weird and like, you know, that whole like, for me personally, getting to the time in your life where you want to pass the microphone to other people and amplify their stories. I don't know if you relate to that.
No, I have no idea what you're talking about.
But it feels like the kind of a time when amplifying global stories is easier. See, this is why we're sitting here at 6th and Market, is because a skateboard with a trans flag can go in front of you next to the newly unfurled rainbow flags. It's just,
that just happened for listeners at home.
That's right. That's the vibe today.
Yeah.
And it's sunny. Are we also doing the weather report?
Let's do the weather report. Did you already say 6th and Market?
6th and Market.
We're 6th and Market, which is also where Golden Gate and Taylor meet Market. Yeah. So it's like a big confluence.
At the historic Golden Gate Theater, where the Vanguard youth in the 1960s started their famous street sweep, because at the time, this would never happen these days.
Right.
The police department was pushing the homeless out of the area and saying that they couldn't gather outside, but because it was against the law to be gay, so it was against the law to be gay, it was against the law to wear clothing of the opposite sex, and it was even more against the law if you gathered in groups because you were encouraging others to commit crimes as well. It was like an additional offense you could get. And so there was nowhere to go. And there were all of these, you have to imagine a time when there was like all-night donut shops and like Mel's Diner type spaces that are like serving hamburgers to hungry people from the Navy all night long. And Comptons. Comptons, exactly. And so they just started doing protests. And everyone was calling them like the litter and bad people of the neighborhood because they were queer and homeless, and they had been working with the pastors at Glide Memorial Church and learning about the civil rights movement that was happening in Selma and other spaces. And so they did a street sweep where they literally took brooms right in front of this sidewalk right here, because at the same time the city was no longer picking up the trash in the neighborhood, with the idea that then they could say, see, they can't take care of it, rich people should. And so they started picking up the neighborhood and doing trash pickups to talk about what a real sweep should look like to keep the neighborhood looking well. The other thing you need to know at the time is that there is a thing called hair fairies who had bouffant hairstyles. Some of which were just doing it because it was the like dawn of the age of the Aquarius, of the like hate men can have long hair. But other people were doing it because they were trans and all of the things before those words came into fashion.
Right.
And so they had lovely bouffant hairstyles, sweeping the streets and working on sit-ins. And they went all along this whole block. And for a long time, the only photo we had of it was right here in front of Golden Gate Theater.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And, but new ones were discovered, like of the Plush Doggy and lots of other places where there were sit-ins that sort of predated that, this street sweep here, because they went to all of the like iconic places where people like were able to act up and fight back for use of a 1990s chant.
Right. I'm guessing a lot of this is going to be in your book.
Yes.
Or is in your book, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
Yeah. Who are we talking with today?
My name is Megan Rohrer, Reverend Dr. Megan Rohrer, if you're my grandma. And I am an author and a trans historian and, a papa, a San Franciscan for a really long time.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah to all of that. My wife and I watched Queer Eye, and we we saw your appearance there, and I was like, that person is in San Francisco, must find and get on podcasts.
Yes.
Yes. So anyway,
June 2020, I think that came out somewhere near there.
So it might have been 20. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
You've been on
We're
the
best
podcast
friends.
before. So longtime listeners will remember Bishop Megan. Okay, maybe catch us up from your best guess of like where we were in your life when we met at Harvey's a few years ago.
Yeah.
To now.
So Bishop Megan was the first out trans bishop in the Christian church. Did
MBD,
that.
as the kids say.
Yeah. I don't know if you've read about this, but sometimes being in church communities is difficult for LGBTQ people.
I had no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I'm very proud to have served in a space that was not ready or quite a space of full welcoming yet, but helped to kind of like put some more cobblestones in that road. Left doing that, had a little bit of a lawsuit with the Lutheran Church about trans discrimination, and then I was able to serve for a few years at Glide Memorial Church here in the Tenderloin and kind of do some of my own kind of personal healing and gospel singing, hanging out, and really like investing myself in the beautiful Black community in San Francisco, and do a lot of what is at the heart of my work and has always kind of been at the center of my work, which is like lifting up the full diversity of the world, and in faith communities, outside of faith communities, and in all of the spaces that happens.
Right.
Currently doing a lot of advocacy work for homeless children here in San Francisco.
I just did a bonus episode with Homeless Children's Network.
Yes.
Are you familiar with them?
Yes.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yes.
They're amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, and in a time where there's a lot of sort of federal grossness about how trans people are treated, for me personally, being able to advocate for folk that I can go home every day and be proud to tell my children that I advocated for homeless families is really important, especially when so much of my life and work has been supporting trans folk, and it gives me a little bit more professional distance from what is a heartbreaking day personally versus a heartbreaking day professionally. And so it's nice to still be caring for the homeless and really kind of entrenched in helping San Francisco be its most beautiful. And then also in my personal life, I get to do fun trans projects and visit folk around the globe and support them. And I think the greatest gift of the very public journey that I had with the church is that it reminded a lot of people around the globe that if they are going through something hard, they're not the first person who went through it. And so I've done a lot of traveling to all kinds of countries around the world to really celebrate trans people and trans refugees and lift up people's voices through books and all kinds of fun adventures.
So, like, how all over the world?
Oh,
all the continents, kind of thing. Or?
I have been to all the continents. Yeah. I've been in even some countries where you're not allowed to legally leave the airport.
Okay. If you're trans, or
there are some countries where you're not allowed to leave the airport if you don't have a male with you.
Okay.
Is what it is, and so what I like to do, especially when I'm desperately in need of a vacation, is I like to look up what spaces are the least expensive to visit.
Right.
What I can maximize with my frequent flyer mile points, and which places would be the most amazing to go to if possible. So I took a cruise to Antarctica.
Oh, so you literally have been to all 7?
Yes, because I don't know, sometimes when you're having trouble with communities of people that aren't as justice forward as you would like them to be, it really helps to go to the most far-flung part of the world to realize no one cares. So I went to Antarctica, and I learned that the world is so much bigger than like Instagram comments and people who only have half of a story and are rooting against you just simply because you exist. And discovered the amazingness of what happens with whales and penguins when COVID means no one can bug them.
Oh, were they thriving?
So thriving,
were
like
bananas.
thriving so much that like the little baby penguins were like, we've never seen a cruise ship before. We must come and dance for them.
Wow.
And it meant I got to like visit queer folk in Argentina who like had so many brave and creative ways of marking their history. That it taught me like little ways that you can do it in San Francisco. Like they would fix cracks in the sidewalks with like beautiful mosaics about their history. I'm personally not a graffiti on buildings person, but they would go every November, which is when their version of Pride is, and like spray paint landmarks on the actual buildings themselves because the city wouldn't let them have landmarks.
Incredible.
But then the businesses got so mad that they lobbied the city to let them have a landmark on the sidewalk because they wanted the graffiti to stop. And they got what they wanted, and I'm like, that's how you do it, right? So
And I bet you beautiful.
right? It's a beauty, it's a resistance.
The
it's,
act is beautiful, but the art and the resistance.
Yes.
Yes.
And so
beautiful.
sometimes you just have to like let yourself have a vacation and like go visit people who are going to inspire you, especially in ways that remind you you already had the gifts and the skills and the creativity you needed the whole time, right? Like the ruby slippers clicking your heels.
Yeah, I feel like I'm bad at cliches and stuff, but I feel like there's something about the thing you were looking for was right there in front of you the whole time.
Right.
And you just needed to go halfway around the world to find it.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also the good witch should have just told Dorothy right away.
Just tell her.
Like, click your heels. That whole Yellow Brick Road thing.
You were literally hanging out in Munchkin Land. Just
Come on.
tell her. Just
Right.
be cool, but now we know about
Yeah.
Glenda. So my story is that I lost a little bit track of you, and then all of a sudden, as much as I hate being on any algorithm-fed anything, all of a sudden the algorithm started feeding me stuff, and I was like, oh, Megan, okay. So I reached out. I don't know when that was that I reached out and found out some of what you just talked about, what you've been up to, but also that you have written a book that's coming out this August, this summer, late July, we'll just say the summer. So tell us about that book, please.
Yes. So here in San Francisco, we have one of the very first transgender districts, the first transgender areas that's been recognized by the government as like a cultural space. And I always, like, when I went to different San Francisco places, you know how they have those, like, sepia tone books of, like, every district of the city?
Yes.
And that's how you know for sure that a place in the city exists. It's, like, every tourist's way of understanding what's going on in San Francisco. But the trans district didn't have one. And I was like, we need one of those books. And as I am unfortunately want to do, when I notice something doesn't exist, I'm like, I should dedicate my life to doing that.
Yeah.
And so I spent 2 years uncovering photos from archives, buying them off of eBay, visiting people in far-flung places like Vegas to do oral histories with former female impersonators who had photo albums from people who had passed away, and put tons and tons of money into trying to get photo rights for all of these amazing pictures of the trans and gender nonconforming community and individuals and primarily artists here in San Francisco from these blocks from the 1800s all the way through to today. And if you're like, why is my picture not in there? It's because photo rights are expensive, you guys.
Right.
And pre-1930s is free.
Yeah.
But I also want people, like, so many people lie and say that trans people are this brand new invention or that we just started appearing. And it's because we're not able to tell these stories to ourselves. Ms. Billy, who is a black trans woman who is in the book, came to San Francisco in the 80s and 90s, and she said we were so busy surviving, we couldn't take photos.
Yeah.
And we didn't write it down. And so just trying to capture some of these stories, and sometimes a picture tells 1,000 words. And, you know, it's the kind of thing, like, it's written tame enough for your grandma to read it, but
Your
like,
book.
yeah, but like cool enough that you can tell, like, stuff was going down. So it's everything from the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence making glitter ash, to Jose Sarria having radical street opera performances, to some of the modern day stuff that happened like at City Hall when they declared August Transgender History Month.
Mm-hmm. All that work that you just said, talking to people, gathering photos, gathering info, was that for a proposal or was the book already greenlit?
So I just decided the book should exist.
I'm doing this.
Yes. And so I started collecting photos. Then you have to have more than 200 photos in order to do a big book like this, and that's a ton. And when I first started, I was like, oh no, what if I can't find enough or get the rights, or, someone thinks it's the bad side of their face and they don't want to be in it. And I was just so blessed and by the great will of these amazing San Francisco photographers who had worked for the Bay Area Reporter, or have tirelessly been going to every drag performance for the last decade, and have these amazingly iconic photos of people. And from other people, it was just begging and borrowing, and for some people, I just brought them out to the Tenderloin to do photo shoots with them because they didn't have photos from their glory days, and so we would just stand next to the place. And the other thing that was sort of born out of this is we made a Transgender District walking tour.
Awesome.
To be able to take people around and tell people the stories, and I think some of that work will help people now make plaques, hopefully in the future, or make it possible. I'm trying to get SFMTA to let us paint murals on the streets with some of these different stories and QR codes. And because if you look around, you don't, aside from some graffitied trans flags on the light poles, there's not a lot of the trans community that got to be long lasting.
Right.
When it's against the law for you to exist, you can't own the property. Your business can't stay around. In 1960s, the average life of an LGBTQ bar was less than 6 months because they would close them down and berate the owners. And so people trying to keep a bar open would own 7 at a time in hopes that one wouldn't get raided.
I keep thinking of before the gangway closed, I was there, and I don't know if it was something that they made or if it was just around the neighborhood, but they had little postcard-sized things of all the their known history at that time of all the bars in the Polk, Larkin, that whole thing. And at that time, the gangway was one of the last in the area. I think the Cinch is the only one that is around now, even on Polk. But it was remarkable to see what it used to be.
Yes.
And that's what I think was part of what you're speaking to.
Yeah, well, and they used to have a tricycle race where you would be in a team of 2, and one person would push the tricycle and another person would ride in the tricycle, and they would almost always have one person at least in drag, and you'd represent the different bars, and you would go, when you would make it to the next bar, you would have to do a shot or take a drink, and then you always had to end up at the Mint because they sponsored it. But so in the book you can find these amazing photos of it was for 30 years they had this cool tricycle race. And so I just love imagining all of the queer stuff that's gone down these streets. In the 1800s, did you know there were circus parades going down Market Street? They had bearded ladies walking down with elephants.
Did they end at Woodward's Gardens? Yeah.
They had across the street, just a block over on Market, there used to be a dime store museum where you could see everything in the circus sideshow for a dime, including a bearded lady and some other stuff. 1883, I think that was around here.
Wow.
That's a great job for a trans person.
Correct.
There was all kinds of really amazing art, like the Golden Gate Theater, the Orpheum, Pantages. There were all of these amazing vaudeville spaces that were terribly racist, terribly anti-Semitic, and spaces that made people who were singers and artists and comedians who were dressing as men or dressing as women, dressing in the opposite sex, incredibly wealthy. And if you've ever traveled around the United States and you've seen an Orpheum, that Orpheum was part of a circuit that started here in San Francisco. Okay. So all of our queer artists would start here and then go to Kansas City and every little place. And they used to sell piano sheet music of those performers. So you'd your little 8-year-old learning to play a song would play the song because the male impersonator sang that funny song about wanting to kiss that girl that one time. And the Baldwin Theater was over at the Powell Street Turnaround.
Okay.
And they had all kinds of amazing, more like operatic style plays. But there was this guy, Neil Burgess. And he is an example for me of like how hard trans people have to try to get a job.
Right.
Because he wrote the play and he invented a stage contraption that is horse-powered. And so in his play has a 3-horse race in it where he's dressed like an aunt who ends up like, I think, winning the county fair horse race. But he had to like invent an entire stage. Took a year to make the stage, so it only traveled to like 3 or 4 places.
And 3 horses below the stage, I'm guessing?
3 horses on top of the stage, running at full speed.
Oh, okay.
You can see the diagram from the San Francisco Chronicle.
Okay.
From the 1800s of how it works. I believe it did.
Yeah.
But like, just crazy amounts of lengths that people had to go to. And it wasn't until like the 1970s, 1980s that drag starts to use recorded music. It's all like live orchestra.
Live, right.
All around this area.
In general, this is a generalization, but I'm always impressed by things like what you're talking about when they were harder to do.
Yes.
Like when things are easy to do and you do them, they might be whatever, but I'm like, it's more impressive when you have to DIY, literally, which is also not a new thing.
Yeah. And so we're outside the theater because there's this very historic photo that we only have because the like 1920s SFPD chief was weird.
Imagine that.
He had a scrapbook that's at the California Museum. No, it's in the Berkeley Museum.
Berkeley, yeah.
And it has a picture from right here. 6th and Market. He kept pictures of people who were trans who were arrested.
Right.
And so right here was a house cleaner who, from the age of 6, dressed as a woman, was arrested at 6th and Market. They didn't have horns then, I don't think.
Probably not.
So 6th and Market, she was arrested and then deported to Mexico because she had violated the law of wearing the clothing of the opposite sex. And he kept
good for Mexico.
Yes.
I guess.
Yes, but an unfortunate legacy that we still kind of see today of people who are immigrants and refugees and really being the hardest hit in the trans community. So you had people of color and folk who were lower income that when they stood outside on the sidewalk would be arrested. And when they would go inside this theater behind us, would be praised and the highest paid people in the world in terms of artists.
Almost like Dorothy landing in Oz.
Yeah. And so it was a really disparate, social economic reality.
Yeah.
All of the people who were doing drag indoors had to take it off and put it in a hidden bag to go outdoors. Because without the makeup, you don't look the same. And so you're still subject to some of that arrest, except for Kitty Donner, who was celebrated in the Chronicle for leaving the stage and going to like the equivalent of the Macy's back in the day to the men's fashion show and looking better than everyone. And so they put it in like the front page of the Chronicle. Kitty Donner, better looking than all you guys.
I'm guessing a lot of what you're talking about is going to be in there. Like, it's not just pictures. There's going to be some writing and things like that. Where this podcast will come out a little bit before the book, but do you know, like, is it going to be kind of like at your local bookstore kind of thing?
It will be anywhere that is your favorite bookstore, anywhere that is your favorite online place to get books.
I've been liking to say, and this is editorialized, this is my podcast, but I'm like, except for that one place.
Yeah, sorry if it's not there. Maybe it'll be there soon.
But also, and anyone can buy it there, but I'm like, maybe look for other places.
Yeah, that other place.
It's a whole thing.
Your second choice if the other place is your first choice.
But around here, Green Apple.
Yeah, Fabulosa, all the spaces.
Great City Lights. Yes. In Portland, Pals.
Yes.
Well, is it going to be national?
Yeah.
Distributed?
And my dream, because around here, in the grocery store.
Yes.
You can find it.
Yes,
Look for those
the checkout
sepia-tone.
aisle.
You gotta wait till enough of the Fillmore District books get sold, so there's space for it. But it'll be around.
And what is it called?
The San Francisco's Transgender District.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a catchy title.
It writes itself.
It does. We're right at time, and we've got excellent
did
stuff.
it.
Anything else you want to plug while we're here? Oh, maybe just in your voice, where folks can find you and follow you and do things with you.
If you are interested in learning more about this or any of the things we spoke about, or just really nice social media photos where I tell you you're good enough and you're smart enough, and I know the world's terrible, but drink some water and you can do it.
Uh-huh.
You can find me on the Instagrams, on the Facebooks, all those places. meganrohrer.net.org. It'll be fine. You'll find me.
Maybe spell your last name.
Rohrer, which is just really ancient Swiss for plumber.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. I just thought of one thing, if you don't mind,
Yeah,
just
do it.
humoring me. I don't normally do this with these bonus type of episodes, but I like to ask my guests to respond to the theme of my show for this year, which is keep it local, because it just occurred to me that what you are doing, and you have your global reach and your national, but especially the book is very keep it local. So what does that mean to you, keep it local?
Keeping it local means honoring and loving the people that are already in your neighborhood, welcoming the new people that show up, and as far-flung as you can, celebrating the magic and the beauty of San Francisco so that it inspires as many places as possible to either suck a little less or sparkle a little more.
That was Megan Rohrer, whose book about the Transgender District in SF drops this August. Next week, catch part 2 with Ed Center. That drops next Tuesday, wherever you get podcasts. Music for Storied San Francisco was produced, performed, and curated by Otis McDonald. Our contributing producer is Aaron Lim of Bitch Talk Podcast. And the show is produced and hosted by me, Jeff Hunt. Now in our 7th season, we have more than 250 episodes available on our website, storiedsf.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If possible, please rate and review the show. I want to know what you think. Follow us on Instagram and Threads at storiedsf, and reach us there or email us at storiedsf@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Be extra careful crossing the street, and keep being wacky, creative, and kind out there. See you next time on Storied San Francisco. We acknowledge and respect the first humans of the unceded land we call San Francisco, the Ramaytush Ohlone. We condemn the genocide of these and other tribes across the Western Hemisphere. We honor their legacy and history, and we support rematriation and sovereignty efforts.
This podcast is a proud member of the BFF.FM podcast network. Learn more at podcasts.bff.fm.
BFF.FM, best frequencies forever.